Ciao a tutti, sono Rossi Wolf 89 e oggi siamo ancora una volta a fare la mia raccolta ehm, di serie TV, telefilm che insomma i miei preferiti, mm, diciamo li ho raggruppati tutti insieme nel canale di Twitch e YouTube. Allora, oggi tratteremo di una serie che si chiama Peaky Blinders. Non so se l'avete vista. Allora, Peaky Blinders è una serie che è iniziata nel 2013 fino al 2022. eh, quindi a 6 stagioni. Ha una durata media di 55 minuti, quindi è leggermente più lunga. Eh, ha diversi temi, diciamo, che si concentrano negli anni in cui si svolge, cioè nel 2019, 1919 e tra il 1919 e il 1935, quindi costumi dell'epoca, storico, vita dell'epoca, quindi noir, ehm, è tratta innanzitutto è girato in Inghilterra, a Birmingham, e tratta un tema molto, molto importante, cioè il gangster, e insieme a quello abbiamo il drammatico, soprattutto il politico, tema politico, che vanno a congiungersi. Allora, Peaky Blinders è un insieme, diciamo, di persone che si vestono tutti nel solito modo, per far vedere che è appunto un'associazione, un gruppo di persone che hanno un cappello con una visiera, il tipico berretto, come si dice in Toscana. Allora, questa associazione, questo gruppo di persone guidato da un ex marine, capo ex marine dell'esercito. Questo gruppo di persone fanno tutti i boss, il tipico boss, il tipico bullo di strada, di quartiere, di città, di paese, di regione, eh, quindi traffici di armi, traffici di tanti traffici, non solo uno, però non voglio dirvi tutto perché sennò vi levo il divertimento. Ci sono alcuni avvicendamenti comunisti, contro Churchill, vanno eh, contro altre bande rivali, quindi c'è alcune scene crude, quindi combattimenti a mani nude, tutte cose così, insomma, diciamo cose aggressivo come, eh, come serie TV di impatto, ecco, diciamo così. Vi lascio il filmato.
The story of the Peaky Blinders gang, consisting mostly of the Shelby family. Decorated veteran Thomas Shelby is the leader of the gang, which also includes his brothers Arthur, John, and Finn, and their aunt Polly. When Tommy comes across an assortment of guns that he thinks he can use to his advantage, Winston Churchill sends Inspector Campbell to retrieve them. To help with his mission, Campbell assigns Grace Burgess to go undercover working at the Garrison, a pub owned by the Peaky Blinders, to gain intel. Of course, as Grace gets closer to Tommy, the two begin to actually fall in love. This leads to Grace eventually going to Campbell to resign from her position and trade information on the guns for Tommy's safety. In
Probabilmente
this
c'è
escape
la
complicated
polizia
one, Campbell professes his
contro di
own
loro.
desire to marry Grace. And it's not just the guns that cause trouble for the Peaky Blinders. Tommy begins fixing horse races, putting him in opposition with Billy Kimber, leader of the Birmingham Boys gang that ran the horse tracks. Elsewhere in Series 1, the Shelby sister Ada marries and has a son with Freddie Thorne, Tommy's best friend. The Shelby's father, Arthur Sr., returns to town after abandoning his family a decade prior and tricks Arthur Jr. into loaning him a large sum of money before running off again. This sends Arthur Jr. into a bout of depression. John announces his intentions to marry former prostitute Lizzie, but when Tommy hires her for himself to prove she wasn't actually retired from that line of work, John calls off the wedding. Tommy then arranges for John to marry Esme, daughter of the rival Lee family, to secure an alliance between the Shelbys and Lees in their fight against Billy Kimber. In that confrontation between the Peaky Blinders and Billy Kimber, the Peaky Blinders win, with Tommy putting a bullet in Billy Kimber's head. As Series 1 comes to an end, Grace professes her true love for Tommy, but he's unsure if he can trust her. As he flips a coin to decide whether or not he should be with her, Grace is confronted by Campbell at gunpoint. In Series 2 of Peaky Blinders, it's revealed that Grace shot Campbell, but he survives. 2 years later, Grace has moved to America and gotten married. Freddie has died from pestilence, and Tommy has plans to expand the Peaky Blinders operations into London, putting him at odds with Italian gang leader Darby Sabini. Tommy also begins working with the Irish Republican Army, or IRA, which wants to unite Ireland under one state not under British control. In Tommy's attempts to expand operations in London and take down Darby Sabini, the Peaky Blinders forcefully take control of Darby's club, the Eden, and form an alliance with Alfie Solomons, leader of a Jewish gang. Elsewhere in Season 2, Arthur's PTSD from the war sends him spiraling into addiction, leading to erratic and sometimes violent behavior. Lizzie is hired by Tommy to serve as his secretary. Polly's long-lost son Michael, taken from her at the age of 5, returns home and joins the family business. And Tommy strikes up a relationship with horse trainer May, which is complicated when Grace returns to town with her husband, but falls back into bed with Tommy and gets
Poi
pregnant. To combat
naturalmente
the
sarà
Peaky
il
Blinders
potere lui
expansion, Darby
che
Sabini offers Alfie
sarebbe,
Solomons his own
diciamo, il
deal to Ireland, causing the
protagonista.
Jewish gangster to backstab the Shelbys. This results in both Arthur and Michael being arrested. Campbell forces Polly to sleep with him in
Questo è
exchange for the release of
l'ispettore.
Michael. Tommy returns to Alfie Solomons to try again to form an alliance. Alfie was dissatisfied with Darby's deal and agreed to once again unite with the Peaky Blinders. Alfie manages to get Arthur out of prison as Tommy sets his sights on taking down Darby. He sends the Peaky Blinders to the Derby Day horse races where they collect and burn the licenses of Darby's bookies and steal all of the bet money. Tommy is then kidnapped on the order of Campbell and taken into a field for execution. But one of Tommy's kidnappers turns on the others, killing them and informing Tommy that Winston Churchill would soon be in touch. Meanwhile, Polly gets her revenge on Campbell, killing him. In Series 3, 2 years have passed and Tommy and Grace get married. To prevent Lizzie from bringing her shady new boyfriend Angel to the wedding, the Peaky Blinders burn down Angel's restaurant. When Angel's father Vicente vows to exact revenge on the Shelby family, a hot-headed John threatens Vicente and beats up Angel. In his own act of revenge, Vicente orders his men to murder Grace. The death of Grace sends Tommy into a revenge spiral, resulting in the deaths of Angel and Vicente. Tommy also finds himself in a business partnership with Archduke Romanov, who has fled to England after the Russian Revolution, and the shady Father Hughes, who tries to threaten Tommy and Grace's infant son Charlie to keep Tommy in line. The Russians want the Peaky Blinders to steal guns from a train to aid in their rebellion, and then blow the train up to cause an international incident. The Russians would then pay the Peaky Blinders in jewels. Fearing the Russians will betray them, Tommy also plans on breaking into their vault to steal the jewels. To assist in the heist, Tommy brings in frenemy Alfie Solomons. Michael also reveals to Tommy that he had been molested by Father Hughes as a child and asked permission to kill him. Polly, not wanting her son to commit murder, warns Tommy to not let her son go through with it. Unfortunately for Tommy, Alfie alerts Father Hughes of the Peaky Blinders' plan. Hughes kidnaps Charlie and demands Tommy go through with both the train heist and the jewel heist, delivering the jewels to Hughes as ransom. Michael tracks down Hughes and kills him, saving Charlie. John and Arthur blow up the train, and Tommy leads a team to steal the jewels. The Peaky Blinders' plan was pulled off successfully. Elsewhere in Series 3, Arthur marries and has a child with a woman named Linda, and Ada is made appointed head of the Peaky Blinders Future Office in America. As the series comes to a close, Tommy begins distributing the loot to his family, but then drops a massive bombshell on them. Warrants had been made out for the entire family's arrest. Tommy assures them all that he had made a deal with someone more powerful than their enemies that would ensure their release. But that obviously does little to comfort the Shelby family as the police arrest them and Tommy looks on. In Series 4 of Peaky Blinders, just as the Shelby family are about to be hanged for their crimes, Tommy secures their release by agreeing to destroy evidence of his working relationship with Winston Churchill. After the family are rewarded their freedom, the Shelbys become estranged and go their separate ways. A year later, each member of the Shelby family receives a letter from Luca Changretti, marking them for death as retribution for the murders of his father and brother, Vicente and Angel. John and Michael are then gunned down in the street. Michael survives his injuries but spends the series recovering, while John tragically succumbs to his wounds. The Peaky Blinders agree to set aside their differences and come together again to enact their revenge on Luca and his Sicilian mafia. They hire professional killer Aberama Gold to help in their quest for revenge, and Gold agrees to help in exchange for his boxer son Bonnie being inducted into the Peaky Blinders gang. Tommy sets up a boxing match for Bonnie to fight Alfie Solomon's nephew Goliath. Luca comes to Alfie to strike a deal in killing Thomas Shelby, which is planned for the upcoming boxing match. During the fight, Luca's men seemingly kill Arthur. Defeated, Tommy calls for a meeting with Luca in his distillery and agrees to sign over his assets to the Sicilian mafia. But of course, this was all a trap set up by Tommy, and a very much alive Arthur shows up and kills Luca. Tommy then pays a visit to Alfie, confronting him for yet another betrayal. Alfie reveals that he has cancer and only took Luca's deal in the hopes that Tommy would seek revenge and put him out of his misery. Tommy obliges, shooting Alfie and leaving. Throughout Series 4, Polly and Aberama Gold develop a romantic relationship, as do Tommy and Lizzie, who have a baby together. As the series comes to an end, Tommy decides to run in the upcoming election to become a member of Parliament, an election which Tommy wins. In Series 5, more years have passed and Thomas Shelby is trying to focus on being a member of Parliament and his legitimate businesses over the business dealings of the Peaky Blinders. He begins meeting with fellow MP
Diciamo
Oswald Mosley,
tra
but Ada warns Tommy
la,
that Mosley is
la
moving
serie
toward fascism.
continua
Tommy
tra
decides to
la
kill
prima
Mosley,
stagione e
assassinating him
la
with the intent of
quinta,
taking them down
poi
from the
c'è una
inside. In America,
pausa
Michael has been placed
per
in
la
charge of the Shelby's
sesta.
business and gotten married to a woman named Gina. When Wall Street crashes, losing most of the Shelby fortune, Michael and Gina head back home to Birmingham. Rumors begin to circulate that Michael is trying to overthrow Tommy to take over as head of the Shelby family, but Michael proclaims his innocence and that a rival gang known as the Billy Boys were the real danger. And a danger they were. The Billy Boys shoot Aberama Gold and kill his son Bonnie to send a message to Tommy that they were taking over now. But with their finances in a very precarious place, the Shelbys and the Peaky Blinders were in no position to go to war with the Billy Boys, and instead call for a truce with Billy Boys leader Jimmy McCavern. This angers the vengeful Gold, but Tommy offers the killer Polly's hand in marriage in return. Gold proposes to Polly, who accepts. To generate more income for the Shelby family, Tommy strikes a deal with a Chinese triad businessman named Chang to help
Siamo
him smuggle opium. At a Shelby family meeting,
a
Michael proposes taking
14
full control
minuti,
of the
ora si
business,
sta.
pushing Tommy into a more background role. Tommy rejects this proposal and banishes Michael for his attempted coup. With her son out of the family business, Polly decides to resign. Meanwhile, Arthur and Linda's marriage begins to fracture, leading them to divorce. When Mosley's fascist agenda begins receiving support from the government, Tommy realizes the political leader needed to be assassinated, so he recruits his old army buddy Barney to do the job. Tommy then pays a visit to the very much alive Alfie Solomons and asks him to have his men stage a riot that would serve as
Questo diciamo è il riassunto delle 6 stagioni. Spero vi sia piaciuto, come è piaciuto a me, Peaky Blinders. Ciao e alla prossima. Da Rossi Wolf 89, buona giornata a tutti.